Cool. Well, I'm here with Michael Barker from Glade, and we're talking about goggles and helmets. But first, we're just going to talk about the background of Glade. For anyone who doesn't know, when was it started? Why was it started? And where are you guys at currently?
Well, how much time do you have, Luke?
It's up to our editors.
It always is. Well, yeah, Glade's been around. This is about our fifth season. Okay, so my partner in crime, my buddy Kurt Nichols, started Glade about 4 years ago. And Kurt came from a background, obviously, with skiing, and came with obviously a background of consumer research, which was really interesting. And he had a big passion for learning about what consumers wanted and how that whole narrative kind of worked, right? And then he saw this opportunity, like, can I blend what I know here with what my passion is on the weekends? So Kurt started Glade really out of a dream. I mean, the guy took $5,000 of his bank account, which was his bank account, literally, and started trying to find, like, where can I find goggles? Where could optics be this place that we could get into? Because he felt like nobody was really talking to the average consumer. So with that little $5,000 dream, Kurt brought his first run in, and after about a year of development, brought that first run in and was like, if I can materialize this into something, sell these out in a year, in a season, then I know that I have something built. Took him about 35 days. And that was really the impetus and the start of him going, okay, this could actually be something. So Kurt was in the Northeast at the time. That's where he was born and raised. He picked up his life and moved to Breckenridge, Colorado. He wanted to embed himself in the ski culture. He wanted to embed himself in people that actually knew what optics could do and change the ski experience. So with that, we moved to Breckenridge, and he's been bootstrapping it since. And one thing that we've really built this business on is staying connected with the consumer. So we are building a very curated line of goggles and of helmets that are simple, that function, and don't fog. And that's it. So I can go on and on. I mean, I can start talking about whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I'm sure we'll get into plenty of details. And with that, I mean, we might as well just dive into product. Like, let's start with goggles. That's where you guys started. I remember when Blister first got the first Glade Challenger goggle, we were pretty blown away because it was very new to the market that you could get a very good goggle that also did not cost, it cost a third of some of its competitors. Right. So why don't we just work through the line, maybe starting with the newest stuff and then working down from there. Okay. But you can just start wherever you want.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this might take a while, so let's get prepared. So talking about, philosophy, right? I kind of give a very quick and dirty of really our background and our history. But really what matters now is kind of this, like, where we're moving and how we're progressing and what we really believe in as both a business and as a design philosophy, right? And I think those are two things very often overlooked, right? A lot of people look at products and they just really want them to perform. Okay. Now, obviously that's what I want too, but also I think it matters from who you're buying from and the perspective that those people are using when they do design those products for you to use. So with us in Glade, it's really, I kind of touched on this briefly. It's really simple. It's really a three-pronged philosophy. I want a goggle. We'll talk about goggles now. We'll get into some new helmet stuff coming out because that's fun. But with goggles, it's real simple. Fit, function, so clarity, all those things, and then it can't fog. That's it. That's all I want. I want goggles to do those three things because for me, I'm a simple person. Kurt, Drew, our small team, we're simple guys. We want to put our goggles on in the morning and we want to leave them there all day long. I don't want to take them off. I don't want to have to be in the lift line, lift them on, put them on my head. And it's one of my biggest pet peeves is watching people slide down, get in the lift line, put them up on their helmet, ride up on the chair, come back, and then just repeat, reverse, right? Our goggles are made so you can just put them on when you're walking from the car and you take them off maybe when you get to the tailgate, make that peanut butter and jelly, cut up the salami, whatever you do for your après scene. So with us, that philosophy stays the same. So we really only have 4 models in the line, okay? Now, none of this really talks about the fact that what you just kind of led to, which was value, right? Value is an emphasis, but it's kind of a last second hook to us, right? We have a cool business model where we're able to do these cool things, but really it's that fit, function, and no fog. Okay. So with us, when it comes into the line, when we're talking about goggles specifically, you just mentioned the Challenger. Okay. The Challenger is the goggle that put Kurt and Glade on the map, and it's still in the line today, and it's going to be in the line really forevermore. It's $99. Okay. $99 is a very attainable price point for a lot of folks, but it's a goggle that, as you said, with your words, that performs as well, if not equally and better than a lot of its much more higher priced competitors. And that's something that we really think is like, why do people have to get into the sport that we love so much and be forced into subpar product because that's what they can afford? Skiing ain't cheap. That's no secret, right? Goggles shouldn't be the price of a ski. I mean, maybe that's a soundbite, but goggles shouldn't be a price of a ski. Okay. So anything we feel that we can do to keep those prices low and more attainable is something that I think is maybe less what we want to do, but more something we feel is a responsibility. We want more people in the sport, then we have to make sure that our products provide a good experience and are actually attainable. Okay. So that's really, I mean, that was probably more than it needed to be, but that's the Challenger in a nutshell, is being able to offer that quality. It's an interchangeable lens system, but it's a post-hole lens system. So yeah, it's not the easiest thing to put in and out, but for the average skier that's skiing less than a week a year, they need a good all-around VLT that's just going to work when they take that week-long trip to Breck once a year. Okay. So that's our flagship. The next in our line is our Adapt. And this one you're pretty familiar with because, you've been skiing on it this week a bit.
Yeah, and so has just about everyone at the summit.
Yeah, so we've been pretty lucky this week because the weather gods have played in our favor completely, right? So I talk about the Challenger, but really the meat and potatoes of Glade is photochromic lenses, okay? Our Adapt and our Quad are 2 photochromic goggles. Like, that's what we like, that's what we're into, and that's what we believe most people should be into. And this week here in Crested Butte, like, the first day was awesome. So, obviously last Sunday night, we get into town, we have this nice little mixer, meet and greet, shaking hands, shaking babies, kissing hands, whatever you want to say. It's something like that, right? Yeah, something like that. And the next morning we get out and it is just nuking. The light is flatter than flat. I mean, for most goggle people, this is a nightmare scenario. For us, it's like, yeah, if you look for a minute and you're like, wow, that's intimidating, right? We'll see. And that morning was a little quiet at the booth. We didn't see a lot of people coming up and interacting with us that first 8:30 meetup to hit the lifts. About 10:30, the first real person to get back off the lifts came up and he was like, what the heck do you have? Do you have anything that can help me see in this? It was like, oh yeah. And then that day was just a steady stream. We're here. This is real, and we can actually make an impact, right? And so it's like, okay, we're doing more than demoing goggles now. Like, we're good demoing with anyone and everybody that wants to put these things on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're putting out Adapts just left and right. I don't know how many pairs I brought because I was talking to Kristen the week before about how many attendees we're going to have. Okay, how many staff, how many vendors do you think? Because obviously I'll put them on anyone. And it was like, well, I have a lot more than I think I need, but I'm just going to throw them all in the car. And so my counterpart Drew, I'm like, hey, throw everything you have in the car too. We're slim pickings here towards the end. We got another day left, and I don't have a whole lot left because people have been using, buying. And for us as a new up and coming brand, we're not really a startup anymore. I mean, people are starting to know who we are, but it's really cool to get that word out there and have people actually try before they buy, and especially at a highly curated place like this where I can ski with you, I can talk with you, I can have you take a run or 2 or 3 or all day and see what you think about it at the end of the day. I mean, you don't get that type of experience anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, I can't remember which day it was because this week has been a blur, but there was one day where it was nuking all morning long and then went full, what we call in CB, donut hole effect, where Mount CB was the only thing that was not covered in clouds, and immediately went full bluebird for I don't know how long, not super long, but yeah, I was like, oh, all the people who are trying DApps right now are seeing them change in real time, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they're not seeing anything. They're not seeing anything. They're not seeing any effect. They're just skiing. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, like, my product's not the forefront of your experience. Glade's not the forefront of your ski day, of any attendee's ski day. Our job is purely to allow you to focus on what you want to be here for, and that's turning. Like, you want to be sliding down snow and turning and not thinking about anything else. Now, that might be a little bit weird to say here, where we have a lot of hyper, enthusiastic people on ski design and cambers and where's my rocker profile and all those things. I want you to be able to think about that stuff. I don't want you to think about your goggle. I don't want you to think about fogging and, oh, geez, I can't see right now. Or, oh, this light's flat or whatever. Like, my product got to just blend into the background. And that's what I feel is a good day, is if someone can be like, well, I guess they worked. Like, to me, that's better than you coming up to me and being like, these were awesome. It's like, no, I just want you to be like, well, I guess I used them all day. I didn't have any problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It's definitely the professional gear reviewer in me who was thinking that. Right. I think everyone else is just like skiing along, which is, like you said, the goal. So in terms of photochromic goggles, you've got the Adapt, and then was it this year or this past year you added on to that line?
So the Adapt we came out with last year, and obviously very well received, quickly became our number one goggle, and it still is. But kind of late fall this year, we added a new model on the photochromic spectrum, and that was the Quad. And so that's a goggle that we've been working on for a while. We found the Adapt is a great, real general medium/large fit, but we did find a lot of smaller faces where it just was a little too much, whether that was width or height or whatever. And so we wanted to create that same experience, but in something that was smaller. But I didn't want to just make a smaller Adapt, because the Adapt has a cylindrical lens. If I just shrink it by 20%, your field of view shrinks by 20%. Yeah, your face might be smaller, but that doesn't mean your pupillary distance is the same, or is necessarily smaller. So with the Adapt, this blue model over here, we really wanted to bring it down. So what we did is we shrunk that profile. We put in a toric lens. Okay, so a toric lens has that extra curvature to it, which mimics the eyeball. And really what that's going to do is that's going to give a lot more peripheral vision on a smaller fit. So while the Quad's a smaller goggle, it really gives the same field of view as the Adapt does. And what's ironic about all that is it quickly surpassed Challengers and MagFlights and jumped into our number 2 goggle easily. So in some ways, like, I'm into it, our team's into it, but our customer base has really spoken that this concept of like putting on a wide spectrum photochromic lens is just the bee's knees. You put it on, you don't worry about it. It's not the same photochromic tech from 2002, which a lot of shop employees, unfortunately, like, when you think of photochromic, you're like, oh, transition lenses, dorky, or don't work. It's like, no, this isn't the same stuff that you thought about in high school.
Yeah, I was actually just about to ask a question about that, because my first experience with photochromic lenses was looking at kids with transition lenses that were walking around inside school with sunglasses on, essentially. Yep. Then it was skiing in goggles that said they were photochromic, and I couldn't really ever tell a difference. And then honestly, like, turned me off from the whole category for a while. And I think it did to a lot of people. And then the Adapt was one of the first photochromic lenses I've used in, I don't know, like 5 years or so. And the difference was pretty striking. And we had several reviewers in that goggle, and the reports were very consistent. So I think if you could just talk a bit about, like, I mean, the point is basically things have changed. It's not the same. Right. But how's that been for you guys in terms of filling people in and letting them know that, these aren't photochromic lenses from 15 years ago?
Right. So I'll never talk about any of the people that we sell against, right? That doesn't matter. But photochromic lenses, for the most part, even still today, have really focused on a pretty narrow spectrum. And like I was talking to some folks today, and it's like, if you have a photochromic lens that's like a 16 to 30, that's really a tint changing sun partly cloudy lens. So if that's what you're looking for, to be very narrowly focused on the sun side of things, okay, like then you're not going to see a lot of variation in terms of how that lens actually functions for you. So for a consumer, you buy it and you're like, okay, it really worked when it was sunny and kind of partly cloudy, but then the clouds came in and I couldn't see anything. Like, well, yeah, because you assumed photochromic meant all conditions, right? So we went much more broader spectrum. I mean, we did 30 to 84 on our stuff, which is kind of outrageous in many ways. But we figured like that's going to cover the vast majority of that actual sun, partly cloud to flat light, right? A lot of lenses won't do that. So have we had a hurdle getting over that? I wouldn't say that we have, but I would say that we have from very, I don't know how to word this correctly, but very core skiers, people that, introduced themselves to skiing in the early 2000s or maybe a little bit later, and now this is really their passion, right? Like those people maybe are kind of stuck in this like, oh, like that can't work very well. And so maybe they don't look at us, or maybe they do talk to us. And the coolest thing about us is, yeah, we're a hyper small team, but we're super customer centric. So if you message us, you're literally getting Kurt Drew or myself. Like this isn't going to a call center. This isn't going to like some CS person that, is just sitting back in, I don't know, New York or something. It's like, no, it's literally going to the company. So you're going to get probably maybe a not super professionally worded answer from one of us, but we're going to tell you like what I was doing today and what I was in, and this is what I think will work for you. And so we're pretty personal in that regard. And that has overcome a lot of it, because with our customers, we found for the vast majority, they're looking for that interaction, because that's kind of gone from the outdoor industry as a whole and from the ski industry as well, where these companies are selling to a broad range, but they're not selling to an individual. And that might sound, I don't know, that might sound maybe altruistic or something like that, but I think that's the big thing is like, I want to be able to get the goggle that's right for you, not what's right for everyone in CB. Right. And so like, yeah, so like today, I talked to a bunch of locals today, and not all of them walked away with the same goggle. And that's because everybody's going to have a personal fit preference. They're going to have a personal lens preference. They're going to have a personal, whether they like to interchange or they like photochromic. I mean, some people like a static lens. They want to have that. I want it like today, right? It was super bluebird. I had a bunch of people this morning that were just like, what is the darkest lens you have? And I can fight that fight of like, well, that's maybe not the lens you want. Like you think that is because you're standing here in the parking garage looking at the mountain. Right. You're staring at the sun, which you're going to be doing on the chairlift. But what happens when you get off the chairlift? You turn right back around to a northwest facing bowl. That's in the freaking shadows. Right. So yeah. So anyways, everybody's going to have a personal preference. But yeah, it's like you're trying to do this like pseudo education / psychology session with people. And I mean, we really don't care what goggle you use as long as you thought that it worked for you. Like, so that's why, like, while we only have 4 goggles, we do have 2 interchangeable lenses and we do have 2 non-interchangeable lenses. Like, whatever floats your boat, we got it for you. But that's it. I don't want to confuse things.
Cool. Well, again, another perfect segue into the 4th model, which is the other interchangeable lens model. Tell me a bit about the MagFlight and kind of who is that goggle for versus the others in the range.
Sure. So the MagFlight, you're obviously familiar with, as is a lot of your cohorts. I mean, the MagFlight got Blister's best of this year, which was pretty sweet for us, and we definitely reaped the rewards of that. I firmly believe. Yeah, the MagFlight's a great goggle. So the MagFlight is kind of like a double-headed hydra of sorts for us, right? Like it is that interchangeable goggle, which a lot of people want that option. But the other thing is it's also a much larger cylindrical goggle. So it's 198 millimeters wide, which is pretty dang wide, and then about a 101 or so-ish tall. So it's a pretty darn wide and tall cylindrical lens. So if you're looking for something that has a lot of coverage, or if you just like something that is for a larger or kind of a medium larger head, that's going to be a killer goggle for you. What's killer about the MagFlight though is that it's simple. Simple is my buzzword for the night. I think it's been my buzzword for the week, but it's simple. Like, so, it's a magnetic interchange goggle, right? Most magnetic interchange goggles out there have kind of become somewhat overcomplicated. You're adding clasps or latches or whatever. And what we found with our design is we have 10 magnets on it. All you have to do is depress the side of the frame. You can swap that thing off one-handed on a chairlift, no issue. And we have yet to eject a lens. So super easy, no little bits and pieces to break, nothing overcomplicated. It's just a simple goggle that swap that quick. That's easy, right? Okay, well, no clasp, how's it gonna land? How's it gonna hold up, whatever? Well, this season I decided to pretend to telly. So I'm learning.
So did I.
Yeah. So So I don't know if I'm doing it much better than you guys, really. And yeah, because I think that's just the thing. Like, turns out that it's way harder than it looks, right? Went from 3-pin touring, and I was like, dude, I can drop knees in a telly boot, like no problem. Yeah, it turns out body weight's a real thing and a real problem. So anyways, I've been loving doing that, but what's come with that is a whole lot of tomahawk testing. So I've done my fair share of tomahawks in MagFlights, and that thing goes nowhere.
Sweet. Well, that's a pretty succinct and well done description of the optics part of Glade. Do you want to move on to helmets?
We can definitely move on to helmets.
Cool. Well, I guess we might as well start off with what's new.
Okay.
Tell me a bit about the new helmet.
Okay. So we have an all new helmet coming out in September that we are really excited about. So for the past year and a half or so, we've been developing a new line and really starting with this helmet and trying to make what we've created in goggles translate into headwear, right? Yes, it's a natural extension of what we do because, well, why? Because that's what most optics companies are doing. You start building face protection, then might as well build head protection as well. But it's a symbiotic relationship between a goggle and a helmet to really get that awesome fitting, synchronized structure that's going to perform well together. Just like goggles, we kind of looked at helmets and went, wow, there's a lot going on them. And is there a better way to do this? And what are some things that we really want in a helmet? So we spent a decent amount of time in the backcountry, but we also know that that's not like the biggest lion's share of the market, right? Like we like to just slide on snow no matter how you're doing it. So we wanted to start with a helmet that's just going to be great all around. It's going to be a killer resort helmet, but I wanted it to be something that could be really used in kind of any scenario. So weight was a primary concern. So I wanted to have a super lightweight helmet that could really fit the mass majority of people and not be so incredibly heavy as a lot of these things have gotten. So we went with an in-mold tech. So the new Boundary helmet that's going to come out in September, on a medium, it's 453 grams, just perfectly under a pound. And in-mold construction is how we did that, right? So you're going to get a helmet that is very strong, but also very lightweight with how it's produced. 16 vents. It is a dual ventilated helmet, so you can vent that forward, aft, however you want to evacuate air or not evacuate air. Obviously, it does have a MIPS liner. We did an antimicrobial liner on the internal as well. Obviously, removable ear pads, dial adjust on the rear, and a fidlock buckle on the neck. So one-handed, easy use, lightweight, super comfortable, and then obviously MIPS in mold, the highest safety standards that you can imagine. All of that, I don't like to really talk about price that much. It's $199. Like the amount of quote unquote bells and whistles you're getting on this thing for $199, gonna have a hard time seeing who else is in that category with us.
Totally. Yeah, I know our reviewer Kristen / Blister Summit director was in that helmet for I think the past 2 days. Huge fan. Looking forward to spending more time in it. I guess we can talk about the 10 mile, the original helmet.
Yep.
And kind of who, in your mind, who's going to be looking at or better suited to a 10 mile versus the other.
Yeah. So the 10 mile to some people's disbelief is actually going to go away. Gotcha. This helmet completely supplants the 10 mile. Sorry. I know that's going to be upsetting to some people. And this year was surprising on that. We, as a small business that's, as I keep on saying, like consumer centric, one of the things that we like to do is we like to really test the market. So the 10 mile originally came out with kind of Kurt's idea of like, you know what? Everybody asked me what helmet works with my goggle. And so I want to be able to maybe capitalize on that versus constantly saying, be like, go buy brand X model Y. Like that's just got kind of old. And so he developed the 10 mile in a pretty short span of time. You know, I mean, it's a hard shell helmet. It works pretty dang well, but it's fairly rudimentary, but it was $120, completely safe, great fit, but not the lightest and maybe the most aesthetically pleasing helmet out there. The Boundary is not a 10 mile 2.0. The Boundary is a complete starship destroyer comparatively. Okay. But with that said, the 10 mile, we brought in our last run of it this year thinking, well, we'll get through this season, and then maybe we'll have a few to go back, you know, in 23, 24, or 22, 23. And yeah, we were sold out of 10 miles by the end of November, which was a shame for a lot of folks that we've actually been emailing with in the last couple of days. Like, when are you getting more of these in? Not. But call me in September. I got something new to show you. And now maybe they're going to watch this and they'll see what that new thing is that I'm going to show them in September is. Yeah. I just debuted it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that sums up the product. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, not a lot that I want to touch on. I mean, really just, it's a great week here. I mean, for us, I mean, the reason why we came and why Kurt and I were so excited to be here was just really to not only talk to highly educated, informed, you know, core consumers, right? People that are just really, frankly, gear nerds. We thought that would be kind of fun. But we wanted to learn more about what Blister does, and we really wanted to learn more about the folks in the industry and make some connections and learn from some folks. And I can say without a doubt, I didn't expect to be as warmly accepted and as well treated as we have been. I can say that last week as I was making the cruise, I was cruising through Western Colorado, and I was like, I wonder if this is going to be a little bit of a frat show, because I know a few people there, but I don't know everybody. And, you know, what's Glade going to look like? Is Glade going to be like, oh, geez, we don't know who you guys are? It couldn't have been further from the truth. And I think tomorrow I'm going to be walking away with a few hugs. I'm going to be walking away with a car less full of goggles, which I'm pretty stoked about. But yeah, I mean, Glade, we're not a startup. We're here to stay. You know, we talk about goggles and helmets now. One thing that we haven't talked about yet, but we might talk about later this spring, is we got a whole nother optics line coming in a very short period of time that it didn't debut here, but I think we'll be talking a lot about with people shortly.
Cool. Well, we are excited to hear more, and thank you for being here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks, Luke.